Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Sunday Bhagavatam class. Today we'll continue with Sloka 21 and see if we can take it all the way up to Sloka number 27. So this particular chapter is titled The Appearance of Sri Narada. And the chapter begins with Shaunaka Rishi on behalf of all of the other exalted personalities gathered there in Naimisharanya. They are posing some more questions to Suta Goswami. So the questions are pertaining to the history of Srimad Bhagavatam, to the qualities of that exalted personality, Shukadeva Goswami, who actually spoke the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. The question pertaining to how Shukadeva Goswami was actually received in Hastinapur. Then questions about Parikshit Maharaj, his birth, his activities, and how he, in a very sublime manner, renounced everything and prepared himself for death. So essentially the questions are about Bhagavatam, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, and the personality hearing the Bhagavatam. After that, we did a small section where Srila Vyasadeva begins to see the difficulties that are about to be faced by the citizens of Kali Yuga and their unfortunate state that they will undergo so many difficulties and so many miseries simply by virtue of being in Kali Yuga, of being born in Kali Yuga. So briefly, we looked at the qualities of those who are born in Kali Yuga. There's not much positive written by Vyasadeva. Actually, the focus is very much on the struggles that we undergo in Kali Yuga. So today we will continue with Shloka number 21, where Vyasadeva has already compiled the Vedas and now he is going to distribute the splitting up and the further elucidation of these Vedas to his disciples. So we will begin with Shloka number 21 of chapter 4 of Canto 1. Tatrargveda daraf pailaha
Tatrargvedatarah pailaha
Samago Jaimini Kavihi
Shamago Jaiminih Kavihi
Vaishampayana Evaikaha
Vaishampayana Yevaikaha
Nishnato Yajusham Uta.
Nishnato Yajusham Utha.
Word for word meaning, translation, and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Tatra,
Tatra,
thereupon, Rigveda Dharaha,
Rigveda Dharaha,
the professor of the Rigveda,
the professor of the Rigveda,
Pailaha,
Pailaha,
the Rishi named Paila,
the Rishi named Paila,
Samagaha,
Samagaha,
that of the Samaveda,
that of the Samaveda,
Jaiminihi,
Jaiminihi,
the Rishi Jaimini,
the Rishi named Jaimini,
Kavihi,
Kavihi,
highly qualified, Vaishampayanaha,
Vaishampayanaha,
the Rishi named Vaishampayana,
the Rishi named Vaishampayana,
Eva,
only,
Ekaha,
alone,
Nishnataha,
Nishnataha,
well versed,
Yajusham, Yajusham.
Of the Yajur Veda.
Of the Yajur Veda.
Uta.
Uta.
Glorified.
Glorified.
Translation. After the Vedas.
After the Vedas
were divided into 4 divisions. Paila Rishi became the professor of the Rig Veda. Jaimini the professor of the Samaveda. And Vaishampayana alone became glorified by the Yajur Veda. So Prabhupada writes a very short line. The different Vedas were entrusted to different learned scholars for development in various ways. So the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda, and the Atharva Veda were split among 4 different personalities to capture the details and the explanations of those Vedic scriptures. That brings us to Shloka number 22. Atharvangirisam asita.
Atharvangirasam asita.
Sumantur daruno munihi.
Sumantur daruno munihi.
Itihasa purananam.
Itihasa purananam.
Pitamero maharshanaha.
Pitamero maharshanaha.
Atharva.
Atharva.
The Atharva Veda.
The Atharva Veda.
Angirasam.
Angirasam.
Unto the Rishi Angira.
Unto the Rishi Angira.
Asit.
Asit.
Was entrusted.
Was entrusted.
Sumantuhu.
Sumantuhu.
Also known as Sumantumuni.
Also known as Sumantumuni.
Darunaha.
Darunaha.
Seriously devoted to the Atharva Veda.
Seriously devoted to the Atharva Veda.
Munihi.
Munihi.
The sage.
Sage.
Itihasa Purananam.
Itihasa Purananam.
Of the historical records and the Puranas.
Of the historical records and the Puranas.
Pita.
Pita.
Father.
Father.
May.
May.
Mine.
Mine.
Romaharshanaha.
Romaharshanaha.
The Rishi Romaharshana.
The Rishi Romaharshana.
Translation. The Sumantu Muni Angira.
The Sumantu Muni Angira.
Who was very devotedly engaged.
Who was very devotedly engaged.
Was entrusted with the Atharva Veda.
Was entrusted with the Atharva Veda.
And my father. Romaharshana. Was entrusted with the Puranas.
Was entrusted with the Puranas.
And historical records. In the Shruti mantras also, it is stated that Angira Muni, who strictly followed the rigid principles of the Atharva Veda, was the leader of the followers of the Atharva Veda. So who is speaking? Sutta Goswami is speaking. So Sutta Goswami is saying his father, Romaharshana, was entrusted by Srila Veda Vyas to actually take care of capturing and delineating the Puranas and the historical records. Which brings us to Shloka number 23. Ta'eta rishayo vedam.
Ta'eta rishayo vedam.
Swam swam vyasyan anekadha.
Swam swam vyasyan anekadha.
Shishyai prashishyai tat shishyai.
Shishyai prashishyai tat shishyai.
Vedaste shakhino bhavan.
Vedaste shakhino bhavan.
Te.
Te.
De.
De.
Ete.
Ete.
All these.
All these.
Rishayaha.
Rishayaha.
Learned scholars.
learned scholars,
Vedam,
Vedam,
the respective Vedas.
the respective Vedas,
Swam, swam,
Swam, Swam,
in their own entrusted matters.
in their own entrusted matters,
Vyasyan,
Vyasyan,
rendered.
rendered,
Anekadha,
Anekadha,
many.
many,
Shishyaihi,
Shishyaihi,
disciples.
disciples,
Prashishyaihi,
Prashishyaihi,
grand disciples.
grand disciples,
Tatshishyaihi,
Tat Shishyaihi,
great grand disciples.
great grand disciples,
Vedahate,
Vedahate,
followers of the respective Vedas.
followers of the respective Vedas,
Shakhinaha,
Shakhinaha,
different branches.
different branches,
Abhavan,
Abhavan,
thus became.
thus became.
Translation. All these learned scholars,
All these learned scholars,
in their turn,
in their turn,
rendered their entrusted Vedas
rendered their entrusted Vedas
unto their many disciples,
unto their many disciples,
grand disciples,
grand disciples,
and great grand disciples.
and great grand disciples.
And thus the respective branches
And thus the respective branches
of the followers of the Vedas
of the followers of the Vedas
came into being.
came into being.
But the original source of knowledge is the Vedas. There are no branches of knowledge, either mundane or transcendental, which do not belong to the original text of the Vedas. So anything spiritual and material is covered completely in the Vedas. That is how complete our scriptures are. They have simply been developed into different branches. They were originally rendered by great, respectable, and learned professors. In other words, the Vedic knowledge, broken into different branches by different disciplic successions, has been distributed all over the world. No one, therefore, can claim independent knowledge beyond the Vedas. So, originally, the Vedas was just one. It was the Yajurveda. Everything was totally called the Yajurveda. And then it got split into the four Vedas and then the Puranas, Itihasas, etc. So that brings us to shloka number 24. Ta eva veda durmedhaihi
Ta eva veda durmedhaihi
dharyante purushair
dharyante purushair yatha
evam chakara bhagavan
evam chakara bhagavan
vyasah kripana vatsalah.
Vyasah kripana vatsalah.
And the meaning here, te, that, eva,
eva,
certainly,
certainly,
vedaha,
Vedaha,
the book of knowledge,
the book of knowledge,
durmedhaihi,
Durmedhayi,
for the less intellectual,
by the less intellectual,
dharyante,
Dharyante,
can
assimilate,
purushaihi,
Purushaihi,
by the man,
yatha,
as much as, evam, thus, chakara,
chakara,
edited, bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
the powerful,
the powerful,
Vyasaha,
Vyasaha,
the great sage Vyasa,
the great sage Vyasa,
Kripanavatsalah,
Kripana Vatsalaha,
very kind to the ignorant mass.
very kind to the ignorant mass.
Translation. Thus the great sage Vyasadeva,
Thus the great sage Vyasadeva,
who's very kind to the ignorant masses,
who is very kind to the ignorant masses,
edited the Vedas, so they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. So this is the shloka. The next shloka talks about the compassion that Srila Vyasadeva felt towards the Kali Yuga Vasis. Prabhupada writes in the purport, the Veda is one, and the reasons for its divisions in many parts are explained herewith. Why was it divided? So that it could be better understood by those living in Kali. The seed of all knowledge, or the Veda, is not a subject matter which can easily be understood by any ordinary man. There is a stricture that no one should try to learn the Vedas who is not a qualified Brahman. That means there is a general rule that is followed. Strictly, only Brahmanas are allowed to read the Vedas, study the Vedas, etc. This stricture has been wrongly interpreted in so many ways. A class of men who claim Brahmanical qualification simply by their birthright in the family of a Brahmana claim that the study of the Vedas is a monopoly of the Brahmana caste only. So, because over a period of time, it was believed that only if you are born into a Brahmin family can you actually access the Vedas and read the Vedas. And therefore, some exclusivity developed. But actually, the Vedas can be accessed by anyone who has developed Brahmanical qualities, irrespective of whether they were born into a Brahmin. So there is a little bit of a misconstruing of this stricture. That is what Prabhupada is talking. Another section of the people take this as an injustice to members of other castes who do not happen to take birth in a Brahmana family. But both of them are misguided, which means some people who are born into Brahmanical families will say only the Brahmana is allowed to read the Vedic scripture. It is their exclusive territory. Then on the other hand, you have some people who say that means everybody else who's not born as a Brahmana, they are not fortunate enough to read the Vedic scriptures. And therefore they think this is a big injustice. Why can't anybody and everybody read the Vedic scriptures? So both extremes, Prabhupada is saying, is wrong. The extreme that says only if you are born into a Brahmin family and therefore can read and access the Vedas, that is wrong. If you say that a great injustice has been done because, say, 95% of the population who may not be Brahmanas are restricted from reading the Vedic scriptures and therefore it is an injustice, that is also wrong. The Vedas are subjects which had to be explained even to Brahmaji by the Supreme Lord. When the Supreme Lord reveals the Vedic scriptures to Brahmaji, even he couldn't understand it. So the Lord had to explain it to him. So what makes any one of us think we can just pick up a book and read and figure out what this Vedas are all about? So both extremes are wrong. An exalted personality like Brahmaji couldn't understand the Vedas. Therefore, we shouldn't think of everything as being an injustice towards us. Therefore, the subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional qualities of goodness. Meaning, if you're predominantly under the influence of Sattva Gun, then you can read the Vedas and you can understand. Persons who are in the modes of passion and ignorance are unable to understand the subject matter of the Vedas. So, if you are driven by Rajagun and Tamogun, even if you try to read the Vedic scriptures, it will be difficult for you. Because you have not developed the capacity to understand matters that require a little bit more intelligence and a little bit more higher level of consciousness. The ultimate goal of Vedic knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This personality is very rarely understood by those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance. That means if you are primarily under the influence of Rajagun and Tamogun, Prabhupada is saying it's going to be impossible for you to understand who Krishna is. In the Satya Yuga, everyone was situated in the mode of goodness. That means all those who took birth in Satya Yuga, everybody was under the Sattva Guna. Gradually, the mode of goodness declined during the Treta and Dwapara Yugas, and the general mass of people became corrupt. So of the 4 ages, you can pretty much guess which age is most corrupt. It has to be Kali Yuga. So the more corrupt the age, the more degradation there is of consciousness, and therefore the Vedas in their original form will be very difficult for anybody to understand in Kali Yuga. So in the present age, the mode of goodness is almost nil. And so for the general mass of people, the kind-hearted, powerful sage, Srila Vyasadeva, divided the Vedas in various ways so that they may be practically followed by less intelligent persons in the modes of passion and ignorance. It is explained in the next shloka as follows. So actually, Vyasadeva, out of his great compassion for us, decided I will simplify it and split it up into various topics. Maybe then it will make it a little bit easier, or at least those in the mode of goodness, to understand these scriptures, which brings us to shloka number 25. Stri Shudra Dvija Bandhunam
Stri Shudra Dvija Bandhuna
Traina Shruti Gochara
Trayina Shruti Gochara
Karma Shreyasi Mudhanam
Karma Shreyasi Mudhanam
Shreya Evam Bhavediha
Shreya Evam Bhavet Iha
Iti Bharatam Akhyanam
Iti Bharatam Akhyanam
Kripaya Munina Kritam.
Kripaya Munina Kritam.
Stri,
Stri,
the woman class.
the woman class.
Shudra,
Shudra,
the laboring class.
the laboring class.
Dvijabandhunam,
Dvijabandhunam,
of the friends of the twice born.
of the friends of the twice born.
Trayi,
Trayi,
the 3 sacrificial Vedas.
the 3 sacrificial Vedas.
Nashruti Gochara,
Nashruti Gochara,
not allowed to be heard.
not allowed to be heard.
Karma Shreyasi,
Karma Shreyasi,
in the successful execution of ritual duties.
in the successful execution of the ritual duties.
Mudhanam,
Mudhana,
of the less intelligent.
of the less intelligent.
Shreyaha,
Shreyaha,
supreme benefit.
supreme benefit.
Evam,
Evam,
thus.
thus.
Bhavet,
Bhavet,
achieved.
achieved.
Iha,
Iha,
by this.
by this.
Iti,
Iti,
thus thinking.
thus thinking.
Bharatam,
Bharatam,
the great Mahabharata.
the great Mahabharata.
Akhyanam,
Akhyanam,
historical facts.
historical facts.
Kripaya,
Kripaya,
out of great mercy.
out of great mercy.
Munina,
Munina,
by the Muni.
by the Muni.
Kritam,
Kritam,
is completed.
is completed.
I cannot hear you clearly.
Yeah.
Translation, out of compassion,
Out of compassion,
the great sage
the great sage
thought it wise
thought it wise
that this would enable men
that this would enable men
to achieve the ultimate goal of life.
to achieve the ultimate goal of life.
Thus he compiled the great historical narration,
Thus he compiled the great historical narration
called the Mahabharata,
called the Mahabharata
for women,
for women,
laborers,
laborers,
and friends of the twice born.
and friends of the twice born.
Prabhupada writes, the friends of the twice born families are those who are born in the families of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, or the spiritually cultured families, but who themselves are not equal to their forefathers. So they are called Dvijabandhus, meaning you may be born to a father who is a Brahmana or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya, but you yourself are not following in terms of consciousness and culture. what your father and forefathers have practiced. So if you're born into a family of such lineage, but you yourself are not adhering to the teachings and the expectations of consciousness of that particular bracket of Varna, then you're not considered a genuine Brahmana or a genuine Kshatriya or a genuine Vaishya. Such descendants are not recognized as such for want of purificatory achievements, which means if you are born into a Brahmin family and you are also qualifying yourself to be a Brahmana, then you have undergone the appropriate purificatory processes to come to that stage of Sattvagun. But if you've not undergone those processes and you don't care for it, then you can't technically call yourself a Brahman. So similarly for Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. The purificatory activities begin even before the birth of a child. How is that? And the seed-giving reformatory process is called Garbhadhana Samskara. So even before you take birth, your parents should have conducted what is called the Garbhadhana Samskara. So samskaras begin when the man and woman prepare themselves to have a child. So that's how samskaras begin. After that, there are many other samskaras. One who has not undergone such Garbhadhana Samskara or spiritual family planning, this is actually spiritual family planning, is not accepted as being of an actual twice-born family. What is the spiritual family planning that Prabhupada is talking? Family planning is family planning, isn't it? It's restricting the number of children that you have. But then our Shastras say one should not use artificial means to restrict the natural process that is endowed to both the man and the woman. That means you have to exercise, you meaning both the man and the woman, have to exercise self-restraint and self-control and should only unite if they want to have a child. Otherwise, what is happening in Kali Yuga is there are so many contraceptive methods that allow a man and a woman to continue to enjoy themselves, knowing fully well that the woman will not get pregnant. So contraceptives are not approved by Shastras. Therefore, a husband and wife should only unite if they are preparing themselves to have a child. And that too, they begin that process with what is called Garbhadhana Samskara. Otherwise, you are considered just like an animal who is mating on the street, except we are mating in more luxurious settings, that's all. The Garbhadhana Samskara is followed by other purificatory processes, out of which the sacred tet ceremony is one. So the Upanayanam for the male child is one such samskara. This is performed at the time of spiritual initiation. So during the Upanayanam, you will get the Gayatri mantra from your guru, and your guru will actually be your father. After this particular samskara, one is rightly called twice born. So you can be called a Brahmana only if you've purified yourself and you're also gone through the Upanayanam ceremony. One birth is calculated during the seed-giving samskara, and the second birth is calculated at the time of spiritual initiation. So in Vedic culture, you go through two births. One is the physical birth, where your mother and father produced you. And then you go through a spiritual birth where you accept a guru and follow his instructions. Therefore, it is called twice born. You're born again. So Christianity also has this concept of being born again through the process of what they call baptism. So just like we have the thread ceremony, they have what is called the baptism. One who has been able to undergo such important samskaras can be called a bona fide twice born. Otherwise, you are just a twice born in name only. I mean, you could have still gotten the thread ceremony, gone through that samskara. Still, you could not, it's possible that you're not behaving like a Brahmana. Then you can't call yourself a Brahmana even though you've taken initiation. So you have to be at a certain level of consciousness to take that second initiation, or rather the initiation from a spiritual master. If the father and mother do not undertake the process of spiritual family planning and simply beget children out of passion only, their children are called Dvija Bandhus. So even before the child is born, the child is negatively impacted because of the parents not following the scriptures. These Dvija Bandhus are certainly not as intelligent as the children of the regular twice-born families. So if the Garbhadhana Samskara is not followed, Prabhupada is explaining, the child will be born less intelligent. Less intelligent what? Materially? Spiritually. These Dvija Bandhus are certainly not as intelligent as the children of the regular twice-born families. The Dvija Bandhus are classified with the Shudras and the women class who are by nature less intelligent. The Shudras and the woman class do not have to undergo any samskara save and accept the ceremony of marriage. So if you ask, what are the samskaras that a woman has to go through? Only marriage. Everything else applies to a male child. And the same holds true for the Shudras. The less intelligent classes of men, namely women, Shudras, and unqualified sons of the higher castes, are devoid of necessary qualifications to understand the purpose of the transcendental Vedas. For them, the Mahabharata was prepared. So Vyasadeva foresaw that in Kali Yuga, there will be a huge dwindling of the population of Brahmanas. Therefore, since the majority of us are not Brahmanas, then we can't even touch the Vedas. We have to be happy with reading the Mahabharata and learning some life lessons from there. The purpose of the Mahabharata is to administer the purpose of the Vedas. And therefore, within this Mahabharata, the summary Veda of Bhagavad Gita is placed. So the Bhagavad Gita is considered to be the essence of all Vedas. Therefore, for the less intelligent people, reading the Bhagavad Gita is sufficient. The less intelligent are more interested in stories than in philosophy. And therefore, the philosophy of the Vedas in the form of the Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord Sri Krishna. Vyasadeva and Lord Krishna are both on the transcendental plane, and therefore they collaborated in doing good to the fallen souls of this age. So this is very true of the current age. Not many people are interested in philosophy. Therefore, stories reach and touches their heart faster than philosophy can. Therefore, stories with morality, values, spirituality, all of that is far more effective in Kali Yuga than actually studying the Vedic scriptures. The Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. It is the first book of spiritual values, as the Upanishads are. The Vedanta philosophy is the subject matter for study by the spiritual graduates. So If you have elevated yourself spiritually, then you can study the Vedantas first. Until then, we have to focus our attention on the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Only after that you can get deep into philosophy. Only the postgraduate spiritual student can enter into the spiritual or devotional service of the Lord. That means if you're chanting, you're already postgraduate. Right? So if you're practicing Bhakti Yoga, you are already postgraduate. So you need not worry. You're as good as a Vedantist without knowing perhaps anything about the Vedantas, except the fact the subject matter of the Vedas, the ultimate objective of the Vedas is to understand who is Shri Krishna. And since we've all already accepted who is Shri Krishna, he is the Supreme Lord, then we are as good as the Vedantist because we've understood the objective of the Vedas and we are following that path. It is a great science, and the great professor is the Lord himself in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us what is Bhakti Yoga and how to follow on the path of Bhakti Yoga. How to become a devotee, the Lord himself comes and demonstrates to us. Lord Sri Krishna himself comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to demonstrate to us how to practice bhakti. And persons who are empowered by him can initiate others in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So exalted personalities who are empowered by the Lord himself, they can teach this process of Bhakti Yoga to others as well. That brings us to Shloka number 26. Evam pravrittasya sada
Evam pravrittasya sada
bhutanam shreyasi dvijaha
bhutanam shreyasi dvijaha
sarvatmakenapi yada
sarvatmakenapi yada
natushyadhridayam tataha
natushyadhridayam tataha
evam thus pravrittasya one who is engaged in sada always bhutanam of the living beings shreyasi in the ultimate good dvijaha O twice born sarvatmakena api by all means yada when na not atushyat become satisfied hridayam mind tataha at that time. Translation: O twice born brahmanas, still his mind was not satisfied. Although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. So here it's being explained that Vedavyas was not happy. Even after doing all of that, splitting the Vedas, compiling the Mahabharata, etc. Sri Vyasadeva was not satisfied with himself. Although he had prepared literatures of Vedic value for the all-round welfare of the general mass of people, it was expected that he would be satisfied by all such activities, but ultimately he was not satisfied. So even though he did the best that he could for the sake of the Kali Yuga Vasis, because of his compassionate nature, still he felt something was missing. He didn't feel satisfied that he had helped the Kali Yuga Vasis sufficiently. But he didn't know that yet. He'll find out soon when he meets his guru, Narada Muni. So that brings us to shloka number 27. Nati prasidad hridayah
Nati prasidad hridayah
sarasvatyastate shuchau
sarasvatyastate shuchau
vitarkayan viviktastha
vitarkayan viviktasta
idam kovacha dharmavit.
idam ko vacha dharmavit.
So here, the word for word meaning is as follows. Na,
Na,
not.
not.
Ati prasidat, ati prasidat,
Ati prasidat,
very much satisfied.
very much satisfied.
Hridayaha,
Hridayah,
at heart.
at heart.
Sarasvatyaha,
Sarasvatyah,
of the river Saraswati.
of the river Saraswati.
Tate,
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 on the bank of.
on the bank of
Shuchau,
Shuchau,
being purified.
being purified.
Vitarkayan,
Vitarkayan,
having considered.
having considered.
Viviktastha,
Viviktastaha,
situated in a lonely place.
situated in a lonely place.
Idam cha,
Idam cha,
also this.
also this.
Uvacha,
Uvacha,
said.
said.
Dharmavit,
Dharmavit,
one who knows what religion is.
one who knows what religion is.
Translation. Thus the sage,
Thus the sage,
being dissatisfied at heart,
being dissatisfied at heart,
at once began to reflect,
at once began to reflect,
because he knew the essence of religion.
because he knew the essence of religion,
And he said within himself.
and he said within himself.
So, what is Vyasadeva actually thinking about internally? That we will pick up on next Sunday, which will be from shlokas 28 to 31, which will conclude the chapter. But the sage began to search out the cause of not being satisfied at heart. Perfection is never attained until one is satisfied at heart. So no matter what you do, there is always that element that says, okay, I've done good. Or that element that says, I'm not satisfied with what I've done. So Srila Vyasadeva was not feeling that whatever he had done was perfect. Therefore, he was not satisfied. His heart was not feeling any joy because of what he had done. This satisfaction of heart has to be searched out beyond matter. So to understand why he was not happy, he had to think. And when he became unhappy, his guru comes to guide him and tell him what's the reason he's unhappy and what should he do about it. Yes. So from shloka 28 to shloka 33, we will take up in the next session where Srila Vyasadeva contemplates. And just as he is contemplating and feeling morose, at the end of the chapter, we will see the arrival of Sri Narada Muni, his spiritual master.